When I found that positive pregnancy test in the bathroom trash, my heart stopped, because 6 months ago I had gotten a vasectomy. Martha and I had been together for almost 20 years. We met in college, married young, had 2 wonderful children. Emily is 15 now and Ethan is 13. I worked as an operator at an oil refinery in the outskirts of Washington. Martha built her career as an architect. It seemed like we had created the perfect family. But that test changed everything. I couldn't believe my eyes. At first I thought it was a mistake, maybe an old test, but the date on the package showed it had been purchased 3 days ago. I sat on the edge of the bathtub, holding in my hands this small plastic object that was shattering my life into pieces. I had the vasectomy done secretly without telling Martha. I just said I was going for a routine checkup. We had both agreed that 2 children were enough, and I decided to take responsibility myself. And now it turned out that my wife was pregnant by another man. The first few days I walked around in a fog. I tried to act normal, but everything was boiling inside. Martha suspected nothing, continued her affairs, went to work, talked with the children. I watched her and tried to understand, who? When? How long has this been going on? One evening, when Martha put her phone on the kitchen table and went to take a shower, I couldn't resist. My hands were shaking as I unlocked her phone. I knew the password. We never hid anything from each other. At least that's what I thought. I opened the messenger and saw correspondence with the name Rudy. I started reading and felt the floor disappear from under my feet. "Can't wait to see you again in Florence, my darling," he wrote. "Me too, sweetheart. These are the best days of my life," Martha replied. Florence, an Italian town 2 hours' drive from Washington, where Martha supposedly went for client meetings every 2 weeks for the past 6 months. I scrolled further. Photos of them together in restaurants, hotels. Messages full of passion. And then I saw something that made me shake. "Have you told him about the baby yet?" Rudy asked. "Not yet. Waiting for the right moment. But I want this baby, Rudy." "Our baby," Martha replied. It turned out that this Rudolph was a pediatrician, 42 years old, divorced. They met on Tinder 8 months ago. For 8 months, my wife had been living a double life. I started acting coldly and methodically. I took screenshots of all the correspondence, saved the photos. Then I ordered a tiny GPS tracker and discreetly installed it under the seat of her car. For the next 2 weeks, I tracked her every move. When Martha said she was going to a client meeting, GPS showed the route to Florence, to a certain house in the suburbs. I recorded everything, dates, times, duration of visits. But the hardest part was pretending everything was fine. Sitting with her at dinner, smiling at the children, talking about my day at the refinery. And inside me, rage and pain were consuming me. Once, Emily asked at the table, "Dad, are you feeling okay? You've been different lately." "Just tired from work, princess," I replied, forcing a smile. Martha didn't even look up from her plate. 3 weeks after my discovery, Martha announced that she needed to talk. The children were at school. We sat in the living room facing each other. "James," she began, and I saw tears in her eyes. "I'm pregnant." I feigned surprise. "What? But I know we weren't planning this, but it happened," she continued. "I understand this is a shock, but maybe it's a sign? Maybe we need this baby?" She was lying to my face. So easily, so naturally. I looked at this woman I had lived with for 20 years and suddenly realized I didn't know her at all. "Of course, my love," I said quietly. "If you want this, we'll manage." Her face lit up with relief. "Really?" "Oh, James, I was so worried about how you'd react." We hugged, and I felt her heart beating against mine. And my heart was ice cold. That was the moment I realized, there's no going back. The next day I went to a lawyer. I showed him all the evidence. Screenshots, GPS tracker records, medical documents about my vasectomy. The lawyer, an elderly man named William, studied the papers for a long time. "You have an ironclad case," he finally said. "With such evidence, you'll get most of the property, custody of the children, and she won't have any chance. But there's a question. Are you sure you want to do it this way?" "What do you mean?" William leaned forward. "You could just file for divorce, show her the evidence, and that's it. But from what you've told me, I see that you don't just want to divorce. You want her to understand what she's lost." He was right. I didn't just want a divorce, I wanted justice. For the next 2 months, I played the role of a loving husband who was happy about the future baby. I went with Martha to ultrasounds. The lawyer said these records would come in handy. I bought prenatal vitamins, asked about her well-being. And the GPS tracker continued to record her trips to Florence every Thursday. One evening we were sitting with friends, Michael and Jennifer, our neighbors. Martha was telling them about the pregnancy, Everyone was rejoicing, exclaiming congratulations. Jennifer hugged me. James, you're going to be such a happy dad again. How do you feel? Like never before, I replied, looking at Martha. This will change our whole life. Martha smiled at me, not understanding the irony. And then I did something no one expected. I went to her parents. To Robert and Catherine, who lived an hour's drive from us. We always got along well, they loved me like a son. I sat with them on their porch, looked into their eyes and said, I need to tell you something about Martha. And it will break your hearts just as it broke mine. I showed them everything. When Catherine saw photos of her daughter with another man, she cried. Robert turned pale with anger. They couldn't believe that their daughter, whom they had raised in the spirit of family values, was capable of such a thing. What are you going to do? Robert asked. Divorce. But there's one problem, the children. Emily and Ethan adore their mother. And I don't want them to think that I'm the one destroying the family. Catherine wiped away her tears. What should we do? Help me show her the truth about herself. Help me make her confess to everyone herself. We developed a plan. In a week there was going to be a big family gathering for Robert's birthday. All of Martha's family, her brother Patrick with his wife, Aunt Rebecca, cousins. And that's where I decided to act. The birthday fell on Saturday. Our whole family came to Martha's parents' house. Martha was in high spirits, 5 months pregnant, her belly already noticeable. She hugged her mom, congratulated her dad, laughed at her brother's jokes. When everyone gathered at the festive table, Robert stood up and tapped a spoon against his glass. Friends, family, today is a special day. Not only because I'm turning 65, but also because I want to say a few words about family, honesty, and trust. Martha smiled, not understanding what was about to happen. James, Robert addressed me, please stand up. I stood, feeling everyone's eyes on me. You've been part of our family for 20 years, Robert continued. And I've always been proud that my daughter married such a worthy man. Martha reached for my hand, but I pulled it away. I thought it couldn't get worse, but today, Robert's voice hardened, I learned something that made me ashamed of my daughter. Martha turned pale. Dad, what are you? Martha, Catherine interrupted, when was the last time you were in Florence? Dead silence fell. Martha looked around, her face contorted with panic. I went there for work. No, I said quietly. You went there to Rudolph, your lover, the father of the child you're carrying. You could hear a pin drop. Emily and Ethan stared at their mother with wide-open eyes. Brother Patrick dropped his fork. Aunt Rebecca clutched her heart. That's not true, Martha screamed. James, tell them it's not true. I pulled a folder from my pocket and placed it on the table. Here are screenshots of your correspondence with him over the past 8 months. GPS tracker records from your car showing 32 trips to Florence. And my medical documents about the vasectomy I had 6 months ago. Martha cried. James, I can explain everything. You can't explain anything, Robert said coldly. You betrayed your family. Lied to all of us. And worst of all, you wanted to pass off someone else's child as your husband's child. Emily sobbed and ran out of the room. Ethan sat motionless, looking at Martha as if seeing her for the first time. Sorry, Mom, he said quietly and left too. Brother Patrick stood up. Martha, I don't know you. He turned to me. James, if you need anything, any help, we're here. One by one, all the relatives stood up and left, leaving Martha alone. The last to leave was Catherine, but before that she approached her daughter. I raised you better. I taught you different values. But you chose your path. Now live with it. When we were left alone, Martha fell to her knees in front of me. James, please give me a chance. I'll end everything with Rudy. We can start over. You don't love me, I said. And it seems you never did. I understood that when I was reading your correspondence. You wrote to him that with him you feel alive for the first time in years. That I'm boring, predictable, that our life is a gray routine. I didn't mean that. You meant exactly that. And you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I really am boring. I just went to work, earned money, raised children, loved you. How banal, right? I turned to the door, but she grabbed my hand. What will happen to us? To the children? To the house? The lawyer will explain everything. Divorce is already filed. With such evidence of your betrayal, the court will be on my side. The house, savings, primary custody of Emily and Ethan, everything will remain with me. You'll get the right to see the children, you won't pay alimony because the child isn't mine. Generous, isn't it? You can't take my children from me. I'm not taking them. They're choosing for themselves. Do you think after what happened here they'll want to live with you? I left, leaving her there in her parents' house, having destroyed her own life. The following months were difficult. The divorce progressed quickly, the evidence was irrefutable. Emily and Ethan refused to talk to their mother for the first few weeks. Then, gradually they started accepting her calls, but the relationship would never be the same as before. Martha gave birth to a girl in April. Named her Grace. Rudolph acknowledged paternity, and they moved in together in Florence. One day, 6 months after the divorce, Emily asked me, "Dad, aren't you lonely?" We were sitting on the porch of our house watching the sunset. "Sometimes, princess, but loneliness is better than lies. Do you still love Mom?" Before I continue, please pause the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new interesting stories. Thank you. I thought about that question. Did I love her? I probably loved the woman she used to be. Or who I thought she was. I loved what we had. Or what I thought we had. But real love, it's built on trust. And when there's no trust, nothing remains. Emily put her head on my shoulder. "You did the right thing, Dad. I didn't understand at first, but now I do. You showed us that we need to respect ourselves." And then something happened that I didn't expect. A year later, Martha called me. Her voice sounded tired. "James, I know I have no right to ask you for anything, but can we meet?" We met at a quiet cafe on the outskirts of town. Martha looked different. She had lost weight, aged, there was no spark in her eyes that I had seen in the photos with Rudolph. "Thank you for coming," she began. "I wanted to tell you, he left." "Rudolph?" "Yes. 2 months ago. It turns out that when the romance ends and real life begins with a baby crying at night with diapers, dirty diapers, he wasn't ready. Said everything happened too fast, that he needed space." I was silent, not knowing what to say. "I lost everything, James. You, the children, my parents who still barely talk to me. And for what? For a man who ran away at the first difficulty. Why are you telling me this?" She looked at me, and in her eyes I saw genuine remorse. "Because I want you to know, you were the best thing that ever happened in my life. And I destroyed it through my stupidity, selfishness, because I chased feelings instead of appreciating what I had." "Martha." "No, let me finish. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking for another chance. I just want you to know, I understand what I did. And if I could turn back time, I wouldn't do any of it." We sat a little longer, drank coffee. Talked about the children, about life. And then we parted, each to their new life. I drove home, where Emily and Ethan were waiting for me. We cooked dinner together, laughed, told each other about our day. And I realized that revenge isn't always about destroying someone's life. Sometimes the best revenge is showing a person the truth about themselves. Giving them the opportunity to see the consequences of their actions. And moving on, building a new, better life on the ruins of the old. Martha didn't lose because of my cruelty. She lost because of her choice. I just removed the mask she was wearing. And then life itself put everything in its place. A year and a half after the divorce, I met Olivia. She was an engineer at a neighboring plant, with kind eyes and a sincere smile. We started dating slowly, carefully. Emily and Ethan loved her. She didn't try to replace their mother, she was just there, supportive, understanding. During our first few dates, I found myself constantly comparing Olivia to Martha. But Olivia was different in every way. She was genuine, transparent, easy to read. When she smiled, it reached her eyes. When she said she'd be somewhere, she was there. No hidden messages, no mysterious Thursday trips. One evening, about 3 months into our relationship, Olivia and I were having dinner at a small restaurant. She reached across the table and took my hand. "James, I know you've been hurt before. I can see it in your eyes sometimes. But I want you to know, I'm not her. I'm here because I want to be, not because I'm hiding from something or someone." Her honesty made my throat tight. And then it got even worse. I realized I was falling in love again, and it terrified me. "I know," I said. "And that scares me more than you can imagine." "Good," she smiled. "Being scared means you still have hope. It's when you stop being scared that you should worry." That night, driving home, I realized something profound. Martha hadn't just betrayed me, she had made me doubt everything. Every smile, every "I love you," every moment of happiness. She had poisoned my memories, made me question 20 years of my life. Were any of those moments real? Did she ever truly love me? Or was I just convenient, the stable husband who provided while she dreamed of something else? But Olivia was teaching me something new, that trust isn't naive. It's brave. Choosing to trust again after being betrayed isn't weakness, it's the ultimate act of courage. Emily noticed the change in me. One Saturday morning, while Ethan was still asleep and I was making pancakes, She came into the kitchen and sat at the counter. Dad, you seem happier. Is it because of Olivia? I flipped a pancake, considering my answer carefully. Yes and no. Olivia makes me happy, but more than that, she reminds me that I deserve to be happy. That what your mother did wasn't my fault. It never was your fault, Dad. I know that in my head, princess. But knowing it and feeling it are two different things. Emily was quiet for a moment, then said, Mom called me yesterday. I set down the spatula and turned to face her. She did? What did she say? She asked about you. Wanted to know if you were seeing anyone. Emily paused. I told her about Olivia. How did she react? She cried. Said she was happy for you, but I could tell she wasn't. Not really. Emily looked at me with those wise eyes that seemed too old for 15. Is that wrong? That I feel bad for her? I walked over and hugged my daughter. No, sweetheart. That's not wrong. That shows you have a good heart. Your mother made terrible choices, but she's still your mother. It's okay to feel bad for her while also knowing she brought this on herself. What I didn't tell Emily was that Martha had reached out to me too, just a few days before. She had sent a long email in the middle of the night. I could picture her, probably feeding Grace, typing one-handed in the dark. In the email she had written, I see you've moved on. Part of me is genuinely happy for you, you deserve happiness. But another part of me is devastated. Not because you've found someone else, but because I finally understand what I threw away. Rudy left because things got hard. Because real life isn't the fantasy we created in hotel rooms. But you stayed through 20 years of real life. Through sleepless nights with sick babies, through financial struggles, through my father's cancer scare, through everything. And I repaid your loyalty with betrayal. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve it. I just needed you to know that I finally understand the difference between infatuation and love. Unfortunately, I learned it too late. I had read that email 3 times, then deleted it. Not out of anger, but out of necessity. The past was the past, and I needed to move forward. Martha remarried 3 years later, to an accountant from Seattle. His name was David, and from what Emily and Ethan told me, he seemed like a decent man. Quiet, steady, the opposite of Rudolph. She moved there with Grace, got a job at a small architectural firm. The children visited her during holidays. The first Christmas was awkward, with Grace toddling around, a living reminder of the betrayal. But children are resilient, and eventually, Emily and Ethan developed a relationship with their half-sister. Not close but cordial. One summer, when Emily was 17 and about to start looking at colleges, she came home from a 2-week visit to Seattle looking thoughtful. How was it? I asked. Different, she said. Mom seems smaller somehow. Does that make sense? What do you mean? I don't know. She just seems diminished. Like she's going through the motions of life but not really living. David is nice but boring. Their house is nice but cold. Everything is nice but empty. Emily sat down heavily. She asked me if you were happy. What did you tell her? The truth. That you are. That Olivia is wonderful. That our house feels like a home. She looked at me seriously. Dad, was what you did at Grandpa's birthday party too harsh? Some of my friends said it was cruel. This was the moment I realized, there's no going back. Not just for Martha and me, but for how Emily and Ethan would process all of this. My answer here mattered. Emily, let me ask you something. If I had found out about the affair, confronted your mother privately, and agreed to a quiet divorce, what would you and Ethan have thought? That you guys just weren't working out, I guess. That people fall out of love. Exactly. And you might have blamed me. Thought I gave up too easily. Or that I was the problem. By doing what I did, I made sure everyone knew the truth. It wasn't about humiliating your mother, it was about protecting you and Ethan from a false narrative. But everyone saw. Her whole family. And now her whole family knows why the marriage ended. They can't gaslight you kids into thinking I was the bad guy. They can't make you doubt your memories or your reality. The truth is sometimes harsh, but it's clean. It's honest. Emily nodded slowly. I never thought of it that way. Your mother made her choice in private, in secret. I just brought it into the light. Everything that happened after was a consequence of her actions, not mine. But privately, late at night when Olivia was asleep beside me and the house was quiet, I sometimes wondered, did I do it for Emily and Ethan? Or did I do it for me? Was it justice or was it revenge? The answer I realized was both. And maybe that was okay. 4 years after the divorce, on a crisp October evening, I stood in my backyard with Olivia, watching Emily show Ethan how to properly grill steaks. Olivia had moved in 6 months ago, and the transition had been seamless. She had a way of making everything feel natural, unforced. "What are you thinking about?" Olivia asked, slipping her hand into mine. "About how different life is now. How I never imagined this version of my life." "Better or worse?" "Different," I said. "Martha and I had 20 years together. We built something. But it was built on sand, I just didn't know it. What we have, feels solid." "It is," she said simply. That night, after dinner, Ethan asked if he could talk to me privately. We went out to the porch, the same porch where Emily and I had talked years ago. "Dad, I need to tell you something," he said, looking nervous. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. It's just, Mom wants me to come live with her for my senior year. She thinks it would be good for me to get to know Grace better, and she says there's a great music program at the high school there." My stomach dropped, but I kept my face neutral. "What do you want to do?" "I want to stay here. With you and Olivia and Emily. This is my home. But I feel guilty, Dad. Mom says she misses me. That she barely gets to see me. That she's changed." "Ethan, listen to me. Your mother lost the right to make demands when she broke our family. But she didn't lose the right to be your mother. If you want to go, I won't stop you. If you want to stay, I'll support you. This is your choice, not mine and not hers. But what would you do? If you were me?" I thought carefully before answering. "I'd stay where I was happiest. Life's too short to make decisions based on guilt. Your mother's loneliness is not your responsibility. You didn't create that situation, she did." Ethan nodded, relief washing over his face. "That's what I needed to hear. I'm staying." He called Martha that night. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I heard his firm, calm voice saying no. When he came down after, he looked lighter. "How'd she take it?" "She cried. But Dad, she cries about everything now. I think that's just who she is now, someone who cries about the choices she made." The finality of this story surprised even me. Not because of how it ended, but because of how complete the ending was. Martha wasn't a villain in a fairy tale who got her comeuppance and disappeared. She was a real person who made real mistakes and had to live with real consequences. She found a new partner, had her child, lived her life. But she was diminished by her choices, and that was her burden to carry. I wasn't diminished. If anything, I was expanded, opened up to new possibilities, new love, new understanding of what I deserved. One final encounter brought everything full circle. 5 years after the divorce, I ran into Martha at a grocery store in Washington. We both froze in the frozen food aisle, an absurd place for such a momentous meeting. "James," she said softly. "Martha. How are you?" I'm okay. David and I are good. Grace is starting kindergarten. How about you?" "I'm well. Olivia and I are engaged." Something flickered across her face. Pain, regret, acceptance, all at once. "I'm glad. Really, I am." She paused. "James, I know I've said this before, but I need to say it again. I'm sorry. Not just for the affair, but for everything. For lying to you, for putting you through that public humiliation at my father's party. You didn't put me through that. I chose that. I know. And honestly, you were right to do it. I deserved it. What happened after that, what's worth hearing, is that it forced me to see myself clearly for the first time. David knows everything. Grace will know everything when she's old enough. I'm not hiding anymore." "That's good, Martha. That's growth." We stood there for another moment, two people who used to know everything about each other and now knew nothing. "Your reaction shocked even her friends," she said suddenly. "Do you know Sarah, from my office? She called me after the party. Said she always thought you were too passive, too accommodating. Said what you did was the most alpha move she'd ever seen." Martha laughed bitterly. "Funny how everyone saw you more clearly than I did. I wasn't passive. I was trusting. There's a difference. I know that now." She took a breath. "One more thing. Emily told me you're thinking of moving. Buying a bigger house for when Olivia's daughter visits." "Yes. A fresh start." "That's wonderful. James, I hope you know, after this moment her life was never the same. But yours got better. And that's how it should be." We said goodbye, went our separate ways in the grocery store, separate ways in life. I paid for my items and drove home to Olivia, who was making dinner, to Emily, who was home from college for the weekend, to Ethan, who was practicing guitar in his room. I walked in the door and Olivia turned from the stove and smiled. "Good shopping trip?" "Interesting." I ran into Martha. "Oh, how was that?" "Closure," I said. It was closure. That night, lying in bed, I thought about revenge. About justice. About the fine line between the two. What I did at that birthday party wasn't just about exposing Martha. It was about taking control of the narrative. It was about refusing to be the fool in my own story. It was about showing my children that actions have consequences, that truth matters, that betrayal doesn't get rewarded with silence and discretion. Martha lost me, lost daily contact with her children, lost the respect of her family, and lost the vision of her future that she'd built. She gained Rudolph, who abandoned her, then David, who seemed kind but unremarkable. She gained Grace, who she loves, but who will always be a reminder of what it cost. I lost a 20-year marriage, lost the family structure I'd built, lost years to pain and anger. But I gained self-respect. I gained the knowledge that I can be strong. I gained Olivia, Emily and Ethan's deepened respect, and a future unburdened by lies. In the quiet darkness, Olivia's breathing soft beside me, I finally made peace with it all. Revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about construction, building something better on the ashes of what was destroyed. Sometimes it's about revelation, showing someone exactly who they are and letting them live with that knowledge. And sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to let someone's betrayal define your future. It's taking the broken pieces of your life and creating something more beautiful than what you had before. The betrayal was Martha's action. How I responded was mine. And I chose to respond with truth, with strength, and with a refusal to be a victim of someone else's story. That's not cruelty. That's survival. That's justice. That's life. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. The screen now displays a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.